I've actually been thinking about this, and honestly, I came across this article, Why Do Africans Send Money Home and How Big is the Remittance Economy? And it gave me some perspective that I want to share with you today. Because as much as you think that knowing that you should not be sending money is going to cause you trouble, right? If you see here, it's telling us about Africans send money home because migration is often a family investment. And I think people don't get that idea that the fact that you are here, wherever you are, right? You're out of the home, out of America, whichever country it is, you are there as an individual, but there's a whole family back home that is counting on you to be able to do this. And it says here that family transfers are going to one of Africa's biggest economic forces. According to the US World Bank, Sub-Saharan Africa received 54 billion in officially recorded remittances. And this is officially recorded, which means there are other remittances that are not officially recorded. And I don't think many people realize the scale of the money that is flowing from other countries into Africa. Like, look at this, 150 million flowing into Sub-Saharan Africa every single day from Africans living abroad. And it says here that unlike foreign investment, which often rises and falls with global markets, it's driven by family obligations. Whatever happens, pandemics or no pandemic, healthcare or no healthcare, people who are living abroad, people who are building their whole lives abroad, still find a way to send money, no matter what it looks like, right? It even says here that the most resilient sources of external finance for developing countries. Like, can you imagine that there is so much money coming out of Europe, America, all these countries going into Africa, and it's more resilient, according to this, so basically, people count more on their brothers and sisters and family abroad sending money back home than their own government. Like, look at that. Nigeria consistently ranks amongst Africa's largest remittance recipients, which is not surprising. I mean, Nigeria has the largest population of people on the continent. 19 to 20 billion every single year. Egypt, 20 billion. In some years, up to 30. Like, this is not $1,000. This is what I think it says somewhere that it's about 100. If you break it down, it's about, you see down below there, it says remittances account for a significant share of national income that exceeds 20%. So 1/5 of a country's economy is powered by people who don't even live there. And here it says, what begins as one person's move abroad often becomes an investment in several generations. I think this is well put. People don't realize that the difficulty of trying to manage your life abroad, make a budget, create boundaries, like I get it. I get the pain that comes with knowing that if you're not careful with the way that you're handling things, things may fall out of proportion. And most people don't get it because you're not in the position to understand that, wait, why do you keep sending money even though you don't have the money to send? It says here, you move abroad, whatever your reason is, right? And the article goes to talk about the whole idea of people pulling money together to send it. I'm a Bamileke from Cameroon. So Jangi is something that we developed to be able to gather the money, pull the money together, send somebody or one child who goes and then pulls the other children abroad or goes and basically becomes the financer of the family. So this is the article. I noticed I did not talk about the article itself. It's Why Do Africans Send Money Home and How Big is the Remittance Economy? It's by Fathia Olasupo. So I didn't see a lot of the research back, but I was doing some research for a different video that I'm making, like a long form video on a different place. And a lot of this data is actually accurate. A lot of this information is accurate. So my thought about this is pretty much the same. So let me tell you what I think. How can we handle the pain of having to send money, knowing that it's a very viable form of the economy of people? Because it's not just about money, right? There are parts of the article that talk about how people use this to actually fund education, keep their house, start long-term businesses. And no matter what is going on in the economy, no matter how things are breaking apart around the world, they are still sending money no matter what's going on. And we don't realize just how much of that can take a toll on you, especially when you're somebody who is just trying to get started in America or wherever country that you find yourself. My message is pretty much the same. Boundaries and budget. And I say boundaries and budget because you have to be able to, let me set this thing up. You need to be able to define and tell your money what to do. If you don't tell your money what to do, your money will tell you how you feel. Let me repeat that. If you don't tell your money what to do, your money will tell you how to feel. And it's not because money is the most important thing in the world. I don't think money is the most important thing in the world, but it is among some of the most important things that help you do everything. And I always come back to the idea that you're watching this on the phone. Money was used to buy it. Money was used to make it. Money was used to research the technology that got to this point. Using the internet, I'm using a microphone. All money is important, right? So if you don't tell your money what to do, money will tell you how to feel. What does that mean? If you don't define a budget, then when you don't have any money, you're going to feel anxious, frustrated, worried, and concerned, unless you've detached from money. And if you've done that successfully, good for you. For the rest of us, mere mortals, we need to be able to tell our money what to do. That looks like what? So, Liz, like, when you said every time I check how much I send, I want to cry each month. I used to want to cry. Now I don't because I tell my money what to do. And it's not a one-time done deal. You know, you do it one time and then you're done. You move on the rest of your life. No, you practice. You start small. You start by setting a budget. You start deciding, okay, how much did I send last month? How much did I send 3 months ago? Right? You decide based on historical evidence. You look at your accounts. I'm a very huge proponent of it doesn't matter if you're starting to budget today. It doesn't matter if you're learning how to do these things today. Start with what you have. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Look back 6 months. How much money did I send back home? And that's just looking at one aspect, right? Budgeting is broad. There are books about budgeting, videos about budgeting. Please, this is not, well, not today. You're not going to find out all about it. I want to give you the actionable things that you can do right now. Look at your bank statements. Look at your money. Where did it go? Look at the money that you sent back home. How much was it? Now look at your expenses on your life that you're staying here, like your rent or your mortgage, your gas, your insurance, all the things. And I'm talking here to an American audience, right? Because I don't know what it's like elsewhere. I'm in America, that's what I know. So I think look at that, make a budget based on the historical evidence of how much you traditionally send. Now, will there be emergencies? Yes. Will there be situations that are unforeseen? Yes. But the problem that I think many immigrants have, and people in general, is that you make other people's emergencies your emergency. And then you have people who basically schedule emergencies nearly every month. There's an emergency. That doesn't make any sense. We need to be able to tell people no. That's the boundaries part. When you've made a budget and you tell your money what to do, and I'm very passionate about this since you can tell, you tell your money what to do, then you draw the line. That may mean when somebody calls that they need money, hey, next month at this time, I'll send you X amount of money. Voila. So I think that we get carried away by habits, by the commitments. You've seen the article, right? Go check it out and read it. The commitments that we've made, the people that sacrificed for us to get here, the people that give us life, that we forget that in order to be able to stand and give other people life and sacrifice for other people, we need to have something to sacrifice. So I realize that a lot of people who have moved here, a lot of people who, no, not moved here, people who live out of America will never really understand how life is like here. And so me trying to explain to them on the phone through text messages is not going to work. The best thing I can do for myself and them is to create a healthy relationship. I need to have a healthy relationship with myself, my money, my responsibilities, my goals, and then make sure that my goals involve supporting them. And if that looks like supporting them with X amount of money per month, I do that. So it's my job to make enough money to grow myself, to grow my opportunities and my options so that when there is a true emergency, I'm able to help. So please, don't cry, just budget. I should put down a t-shirt. Don't cry, just budget.